Bienvenidos, gracias por estar aquí en esta charla del día de hoy, el capítulo de acústicos hispanohablantes de la Sociedad Acústica Americana. Vamos a hacer una pequeña introducción y después pasamos al tema técnico de hoy. Spanish Speaking Acousticians, el nombre del capítulo, tiene como misión congregar y conectar a los profesionales y estudiantes de la acústica y el sonido en el área geográfica de América Latina. La idea es que la Sociedad Acústica Americana tenga más presencia en otros países latinoamericanos especialmente, y los hispanohablantes se unan más a esta población. Tenemos miembros en en todas las regiones del mundo. Los países principales con más membresía actualmente son Colombia, México y Argentina. Tenemos un buen porcentaje de miembros que son estudiantes. Para unirse al capítulo solamente se necesita llenar un formato para registrarse como miembro. No tiene ningún costo, no hay que ser miembros oficiales de la ASA para participar en el capítulo. Pero obviamente también los invitamos a que se hagan miembros de la ASA. Hay una categoría especial para personas en países de desarrollo que es muy económica, y si son estudiantes, pues también la membresía es de muy bajo costo. Nuestra actual junta directiva se compone de estos miembros. Siempre estamos abiertos a recibir más personas que quieran trabajar por el capítulo, ayudarnos a organizar actividades y hacer parte más intensamente de este grupo. Estamos en todas las redes sociales. Principalmente los invito a seguirnos por Facebook y por LinkedIn, donde tratamos de postear invitaciones de los eventos que se vienen, y también al canal de YouTube, donde hay grabaciones de todos los eventos previamente presentados, tanto en inglés cuando ese fue su idioma original, como en español cuando tuvieron interpretación. Y ahora vamos a pasar al inglés. Recuerden que en el Zoom abajo en los controles está el canal de interpretación, donde pueden escoger el canal de español. So we switch gears now to English. We are speaking about balancing aesthetics and acoustics, achieving high intelligibility in a historical Senate chamber. And it's my pleasure to introduce Bruce Olson. He's the founding member of Olson Sound Design. It's a consultant firm of over 30 years who specializes in acoustical and technical systems design. Before this, he had been working in audio, video, and acoustics for some time, more in the field, and then moving to project management. He's also the head of AFMG Services North America. This company works as a representative of AFMG Technologies to provide training, customer support for the ease and other software from AFMG. He is a fellow and past president of the Audio Engineering Society, as well as many other roles. And he's also a fellow of the Acoustical Society of America. So help me welcome in Bruce, and I'll give you the screen now.
Okay. Thank you, Anna, and welcome to everybody from the southern side of this side of the earth. I'm happy to be here, and I will walk through what it is that I'm going to talk about. So, when we are looking at acoustical models, and in particular when we want to balance the room acoustics, the sound system design, along with the aesthetics of a historical room, we've got a number of steps that we need to go through. So the overview is we're going to first build the acoustical model. Then we're going to tune that acoustical model. I'll walk you through a couple of those steps. Then we bring in the existing sound system. After that, we then take a look at modifying the sound system in order to use the existing room acoustics. as well as looking at modifying the room acoustics in order to be able to use the existing sound system. So we're going to walk through all of that and see what the results are. Let's see here. I have to confirm my speaking language. Swedish? No. English. Okay. So our first step is let's go ahead and look at the model. Let's see, I have to escape out of that one. So here we are. Here is the model of the Senate chambers for the Minnesota state here in the United States. It has 67 representatives, senators, and there are 67 seats for them, spaced throughout the space here. What I've highlighted in green are two things. The first thing that we did was to create the model, and then we went out and we did some acoustical measurements of the existing space in order to be able to tune this model. Because it's a 100-year-old building, we don't know exactly what all of the materials are. Some of them we can inspect directly. Some of them are less clear from the drawings. And so we need to make sure that by measuring the reverberation time in the room, that we can match that to the simulations created by the model of that room. So I've got a number of loudspeaker locations in here. Dodec in the center of the space, the exact center of the dome. Primarily, most of the measurements were done with the dodec here in what's called the well, the normal place for when this room was designed that people would speak from this location. So most of the measurements were done at this location, but I also put it exactly in the middle of the dome in order to see if there were any significant differences due to reflections coming equally from surfaces in the dome. I also have a loudspeaker up here at the president's position, the person in charge of the Senate, and that was a small talk box that simulates the sound of a talker in the space. We use that to make some measurements of the intelligibility and the levels of an unaided talker in the room. And so those are all of the locations. So I have a couple locations in each of the public galleries on the west and the east side of the building, in addition to 4 main locations and a couple of auxiliary locations. Obviously, if I have the loudspeaker here, I didn't use this as a measurement location. It was used as a measurement location for when the loudspeaker was over here. So let's go take a look at what the result of these measurements were. Here I have an Excel spreadsheet that we use for figuring out what was going on. So I have a set of measurements that I've made using ESRA, which is a dual FFT measurement tool that allows us to do multiple microphones at the same time. And we can do both interrupted pink noise as well as sweeps in order to measure the reverberation time. In this case, we used sweeps. The primary reason for using sweeps is it gives us better signal to noise ratio at the low frequencies. So we have 4 measurement microphone locations, and we had a number of different reverberation time measurements that we made at each of those 4 locations simultaneously, and I can choose from those. And here on the right-hand side, you can see 4 of those measurements after having been averaged. So we've averaged each of the channels, mic 1 through 4, and we've displayed them over here, as well as we have a measurement average that I've shown as a dashed line here. That is what we're going to use in order to tune the room. So now let's scroll down a little bit, thanks to my colleague Anna, who does this quite regularly for us. What we've done is we've taken each of those averages, and that average that you see up here is this curve down here that is the measurement average for each of the 4 microphones. So what we did was initially we made a aura calculation. Aura is a utility for room acoustics that allows us to do a full impulse response that mirrors the impulse responses that we use to take the measurements. And we came up with what is that aura average. And you can see that that aura average is about a half a second greater than the average of our measurements. So that means that we need to modify our coefficients of our materials in the room in order to bring that down to where it should be, which is this curve here. So we do that by also calculating the I-ring and using the I-ring in order to do real-time modifications of the absorption coefficients. And what we do is we simply divide those. We come up with a new target I-ring, which is the values over here on the left. And what we want to do is we want to then adjust our absorption coefficients to achieve this I-ring reverberation time, which we hope when we do a new aura calculation will then give us a result that looks like this. All right, so let's take a look at how we go about doing that modification. I'm going to switch windows here to, let me see, is it this one or is it, to find the right model, that's 3, so there we go. So here we are. Let me, we're in that model, and I'm going to, right now what I've got is the materials in use that I'm using in that model. Let me see if I can drag this over here. Yep, there we go. All right, so I'm going to put that over here. And what I've done is I've identified that in the materials in use, we've got 3 materials here that are essentially the same. I've divided them up simply to change the colors of them because they are all plaster on lath. Some of them is the cornice, which is painted a different color than the main plaster on the lath. And then that plaster on lath in the galleries is a dark blue. So these materials are all exactly the same materials. And when we look at that, they are about 60% of the surface area in the room. So we're going to modify that. That's the one that we're least sure of the reverberation time. The other percentages are extremely small, and it wouldn't matter if we modified them by 200 or 300%. It really would not have an effect on the overall reverberation time. I'm now going to switch this guy to the acoustic parameters so I can look at the reverberation time. So here I have an overlay. I've already modified my materials, and I'm going to choose one of those materials. I'm going to go over here to this screen, and I've chosen one of the plaster on laths, which here you can see the original values, which are the lower absorption coefficients, and the modified coefficients, which are a little bit higher in value, but still within a reasonable range for plaster on lath. So what we've done is we've come in here and we've modified this, and I'm just going to show you with a couple of points here. I'm going to go in the middle, and I'm going to adjust this up or down. And as I adjust this material, you can see that I am now adjusting that I-ring reverberation time in the middle of the screen there in order to be able to match that new target value of I-ring reverberation time. And so we simply go through here and in real time adjust these coefficients in order to give us an overlay that gives us the reverberation time that we desire. So once we've done that, then we go back and we check that and we run a new aura calculation with the modified coefficients and verify that that then matches the reverberation time that we measured in the room. Once we've done that, now we know that any acoustical changes that we make to the model will be reflected in the same way. Also, if we make changes to the sound system, we can then see how the sound system performs when we're using that acoustic that's in the model. Okay, so let's go back and have a look at, before I do that, so here we are, this second version of the model. The previous version only had some things added to it. This second version is still the existing system, but I've added the seat and the wall loudspeakers. Let me go take a look at the third version of this, which is this one here. And now I'm displaying it with those material colors so that we can see we've got this very bright carpet throughout the space. Most of the area around the dome and in the upper area are this plaster lath, and then we've got some sound panels on the side walls here. So now what I've done is in this third model, we have changed the wall panels from a 1-inch to a 2-inch, and we've added some acoustical plaster in the ceiling to result in a reverberation time that should give us better performance of the original sound system. I also have another model where I added even more absorption in this ceiling area by opening up the panels to the space that's open above the dome. And instead of having absorbing panels in these, let me highlight those for you here. Where are we? Those are the inside panels. So this group of panels, I have to switch my view here so that you can see it better. Go back to our default colors. Our inside panels are not shown here. There they are over on the other side. So all of these panels in the dome have got absorption in them. And by removing that and instead opening it up to the acoustical absorption materials that are up in this dome, then we get an even lower reverberation time. We don't really need to do that in this room. And let's take a look at that now. Let me get back to my presentation here. All right, so we've built the acoustical model, we've tuned the existing model. Now let's look at the existing system. So here we are, what the original designer of this space, so this space was renovated about 15 years ago, and they opted to move from loudspeakers that were located next to the desks to putting 4 loudspeakers in the dome above the ceiling. And when you model just the direct sound field, here we're looking at the direct SPL, we get seemingly a really nice result. And generally, if you get good direct sound pressure levels in your space, you are going to end up with a good sound system as long as the reverberation time is under control in the space. Well, we're about 2-second reverberation time. We'd like to be closer to 1 second for good speech intelligibility. And when we do the intelligibility in this room, we find out that we are extremely low. We're down in the 0.5 region. 0.5 STI is the minimum requirement for an emergency sound system, not a sound system where we're trying to debate legislation and changes, this is not going to have a very good result. And in fact, they're unhappy with that. If we look at both the cumulative distribution, we see that the average over 95% of the space is about 0.56, extremely low. And if we look at the distribution of the values, we don't get above 0.58. Most of the room is down here in this 0.56, 0.57 range of values. So we need to either change the acoustics in the room or change the sound system in order to improve that. So let's take a look at doing a comparison. Let's go back to something that works well. When they renovated the space, we were also involved with the Minnesota House. We've reported on that earlier to previous Acoustical Society meetings and Audio Engineering Society meetings. And in that room, they maintained having the loudspeakers in the desks. And so here I have created a loudspeaker in the desk and added those to the model. And we see that we still have a very nice even distribution throughout the space. And now we've improved the intelligibility by quite a bit. We're up in this dark green range, which is exactly where we want to be, in the 0.65 to 0.75 region. Even a couple of the areas are slightly above that. Let's look at that in our cumulative distribution, where now our average is 0.72 instead of the 0.56 that we had before. And we can see here that this one outlier here is for the dais at the front where the secretary and the president are. I did not model loudspeakers there. They have got their own individual personal monitors up there, so they've got good intelligibility as well. I just wanted to look at the desk area here. So we can see that if we go to putting loudspeakers in the desks, that it gets very much better again. So that's one solution. A second solution is to put a couple of steerable line arrays at the front of the room. There's a place to do that between the marble columns that are up there. And again, we get a very good result, very even result throughout the space. Again, ignore this president's area up here. They're not intended to cover there. I did not model these two little loudspeakers that are covering that area. And again, when we look at the intelligibility, it looks really good. And here we see the cumulative distribution. Again, we're about 0.69 or so, not quite as good, but almost as good as the previous system with the desks. And it's quite a bit less work in order to do this system, and we get a similar good result. However, there's a problem with this. We can look at what is the effect of echo as well. So we've got these loudspeakers, they're pointing to the back of the room, and they're hitting that back wall pretty well. And we see towards the front of the room here that we actually have got a problem with echo. For speech, we want to be below 0.8. And we've got a lot of areas up here, that's the light green, both at the dais where the secretary and his staff are located, as well as at the president's location. They are receiving a severe echo off of this back wall. So what that would mean is we'd need to add some absorption along this back wall. That may or may not be doable. If we added that absorption, then we'd be able to reduce this echo. So we're just barely in the area where 50% of the people would notice that as an echo. And so that might work, but we need to be careful, and it's going to require some additional acoustical changes in order to make this system work. All right, let's flip the coin then. And now we're going to take a look at modifying the acoustics in this room. So I added some deeper absorption on the wall panels on the side wall, and then up in the public galleries, we added some acoustical plaster on the ceiling. So now when we take a look at our original loudspeaker systems, we see again a very good even result. And when we look at the STI values, we see that we're solidly in the 0.6 area. We're not in the dark green area that we were before, but we get up to 0.6. If we made additional acoustic modifications, which was the fourth model that I built, then we would be able to bring that up to those results. So here we are, cumulative is now 0.61. That's a reasonable result, and we're bunched up all in this 0.61, 0.62 area, which would be acceptable. Let's take a look at, whoops, I thought I had one more here. If we did that with the main system, we would see a similar result, but we'd still have that echo problem. So that's mostly what I wanted to show you. I wanted to go back. I skipped over one part of this. Let me find, let's see here, I need to get out of that guy, and I wanted to come back to this one. Let's go to our, yeah, we can do it with this one. So here, in order to set those levels, part that I skipped over is another real-time option that we've added. Here I can add in some mapping in the direct field, and I'm going to change my view here to make it a little bit easier to see what's actually going on. So here we are now with my desk loudspeaker system. My calculations, I'm looking at the broadband A weighting, which is what we were looking at before. I can turn on let's see here, I want to make sure that I've got map with shadow on. I do. And here we can see the levels over on the right-hand side. That's coming from these levels which have not been set correctly yet. So let's go modify those. I'm going to turn on something called processing blocks, which allows me to modify groups of loudspeakers. And I need to, let's see here, I need to select that one and this one. And we're going to make a create a processing block out of those. We'll label this is the dais. And now I'm going to turn those down. I know that those levels need to be similar to the desk loudspeakers. So somewhere's in this -20 region. So you can see here that it becomes really pretty easy to be able to match my levels. Now what I've done is I've set a constant set of levels, so I'm looking for the same set of colors here and there. So there we are. Now we've got the dais speakers set at the appropriate level. I could also do that with the desk loudspeakers here. I could turn them up or turn them down, and we instantly see the results of those. So we've got a very quick way now of we've got a lot of loudspeakers in here, and when I'm comparing those loudspeakers, for instance, with switching to the main loudspeaker systems, those have a different set of levels, and so I need to always constantly match what are my levels with the different sets of loudspeakers systems and be able to modify those as well. Okay, I think that's going to be it. We can leave it there, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Great. Anyone who wants to ask a question, we prefer that you use the Q&A. Otherwise, you can copy in the chat. If you want to ask a question in Spanish, we'll make sure that we do the translation for Bruce. You did a good job. Everything is clear.
Everything is absolutely clear. That's great. So when I present this next week to the client, I should not have any questions from them either.
Okay, I see something in the Q&A. It says, I have one question. Are there contemplated some psychoacoustic topics as surveys before and after acoustic treatment?
Great question, Mario. That is, so we've done a number of things with this project. So first of all, um, we're there doing this because they had a catastrophic failure 3 years ago with the sound system, where the Crestron control system decided to fail. And while it failed, it turned off the entire sound system. For the Minnesota Senate, they have a deadline that is usually the third Monday in May. And this happened Saturday night before that Monday deadline. So they had to go out and scramble and bring in a DJ and his portable loudspeaker systems in order to complete the session. They didn't want that to happen again, so they hired me to both give them a more reliable system, to give them an emergency replacement system, and as long as I was there, they weren't happy. They'd received many complaints from the senators, from their members, that they couldn't hear very well. That, in particular, some of them are hard of hearing, of course, and they couldn't stand in various locations in the room and be able to understand what was going on. So that's essentially a survey at the beginning that said, hey, we need to do something better. Took a while to work through that process, and finally this year we went on to phase 2 of the process, which was to investigate how to give them a more reliable system as well as how to give them a better system. So we made these initial measurements, and then during session in the middle of May, we went out and we did some measurements in situ while they were in session. So I've got data, including intelligibility data, that I measured from individual senators speaking during that time. And so I know what the results are. Our next step will be to make these, figure out which modifications they're going to accept. And we have scheduled, as I think it's phase 4 or phase 5, we will then go back out and do a survey of the people afterwards. So when we did this for the Minnesota House, that was one where we had created oralizations, and we were hired in order to demonstrate the efficacy of the system, that is, how well did it work, to leadership of the dominant parties that were there, and we had to show them how it would work, and we went ahead and did that. Here we're going to demonstrate it with the real life sound system afterwards, and do a survey afterwards.
Great. It seems that there are no more questions. So we
We'll
thank
give you
Bruce
back some of
again.
your day.
We have a little bit of free time. Thank you all for joining us. Remember that the recording will be posted to the YouTube channel in both languages. Okay,
We've got
will
a good
take this
question
last
from
question.
Gustavo.
Okay, go ahead.
So it looks as though I drew the chairs. Very perceptive of you. Um, yes, normally we don't recommend that you draw in that kind of a detail. What I did for those is let me bring in, I'm going to add a loudspeaker here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of those loudspeakers. So I created a loudspeaker that is the Senate desk with a Dayton loudspeaker in it. Why this Dayton loudspeaker? It's the loudspeaker that I used in the house, and I have measurement data for that loudspeaker, so I was able to create a GLL for it. And what I did was, let me put this in the model here, and you can see that actually what I've done is I've created a loudspeaker cabinet, which is the desk. So it has no acoustic properties in the model, but gives me a very nice representation so that we see that the desks are there when I turn on those loudspeakers. Yes, so that's what I would do is I would then I have a flat surface and you can see that in the model here under if I turn off these audience areas so that we can see underneath them. I have got a little panel in here. Oops, I've turned the faces off so you can't see it. I've got a little face here, and it is that wood for the audience area. There's another one. Then in the audience area, I've got that entire audience area is there floor carpet commercial on concrete, and it's got scattering coefficients applied to it that are typical for a semi-occupied audience area. Now we are done, maybe.
Now we're done. So as I was saying, we'll post the recording to YouTube. Take a look at our previous talks. We still have 2 or 3 more talks for the rest of this year. So keep an eye on our social media. If you are not a current official member of the chapter, you can sign up, and that means you will also receive an email when we announce our talks and an email that tells you we have posted the latest recording. Thanks again, Bruce, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.